modern-day magicians, siphoning bank accounts out of thin air.
Do you hear yourself? What was that?
Hello. I think someone else is hacking in. Let's take a peek.
Let's not.
Stick to the plan, Damien.
Siphon the accounts and get out.
Adventure, my boy.
As one of the most hyped games of the last few years, Watch Dogs has always promised to be an exciting new take on the open world genre, claiming to give players the ability to hack into and manipulate the city of Chicago at will, yet it's been a concern that it wouldn't be able to fully deliver on this lofty promise. Well, gamers, after years of nervous anticipation, it's time to breathe a sigh of relief, because in this regard, Watch Dogs most certainly delivers. While GTA 5 was a technical marvel and excelled at brilliant satire and storytelling, Watch Dogs does something that Rockstar's open-world opus simply doesn't. It makes you feel in control. Set in a near-future Chicago, the entire city is now run on an advanced operating system called CTOS, and while the company behind it, Bloom, have assured the public it's secure, our hacker quickly proves otherwise. If you're tailing a perp down the mean city streets and you just don't have access to that car and gun, you've got the entire city's CTOS system at your fingertips. Don't want to participate in a 20-minute car chase? Then wait until your target drives over a steam pipe and blow him to smithereens. But you can even ignore hacking entirely and chase after him maniacally with a shotgun. The point is that the choice is yours, and Watch Dogs is all about giving the player options. While the freedom presented to you is brilliantly imagined, Virtual Chicago is one half of what makes the game's missions so enjoyable. What really separates Watch Dogs from the crowd is, of course, your ability to use hacking in and out of combat. From initially profiling everyone who walks by you to the first amusing NPC text message you pry into, the hacking mechanic feels consistently enjoyable and unique throughout. Having a few lines of information on all the NPCs is a simple touch, but a surprisingly effective one, and there are an impressive amount of different phone conversations for you to eavesdrop on. As well as snooping on members of the public, this mechanic also makes combat more of a moral dilemma than most recent games have dared to. When you're told that the cop you're looking for is a newlywed, it makes you think twice about how you deal with him, and while eventually the randomly assigned information loses its impact, the attempt to humanise the often faceless enemies you mow down is an interesting one. As well as being a fun toy to play with while roaming the city, your hacking abilities become incredibly useful when contained in some of the smaller combat-focused missions too. While stealth sections in modern games can often feel like a chore, using the tech around you to create havoc and remain unnoticed feels consistently thrilling here. When tasked with clearing a base, your initial move will be to hack the nearest camera. Once you're into a camera, you're presented with the lay of the land and a playground full of wonderful hacking possibilities. Seeing the guards fall into a panic while picking them off from a safe distance is a joy to behold, and while it's something you'll end up experiencing often throughout the game, it says a lot that it never really grows old. Watch Dogs' skill system fits in perfectly with however you choose to play, and as you'd expect gives you the option of different fields to specialise in: hacking, driving, crafting and combat. Each time you level up you'll get to assign skill points, and given how often you earn XP, it's likely you'll end up unlocking the vast majority of abilities for at least two of those fields. A sense of choice and flexibility seems to be rooted in every aspect of the design, and it even extends to how Ubisoft Montreal have handled the game's online component. While running around causing mayhem, an invite will often pop up for an online challenge. If you choose to accept, you'll be transported to the race or the mission objective, as you'd expect, but when you've finished, the other player disappears while you remain in the same location, but now seamlessly you've been transplanted back into the single-player world. The sheer fluidity of the transition from single-player to offline took us off guard and felt like a breath of fresh air after the haphazardly separated experience of GTA 5's online component. Aside from contained multiplayer matches, a free roam mode is also available. The meagre 8 slots offered, however, is a little bit disappointing. If you manage to tire of the story missions, the 3 types of side missions, the online matches, or just generally causing open world mayhem, you can always indulge in something a bit different. Watch Dogs is littered with a large amount of surprisingly fun distractions, offering you completely different tone and aesthetic to the rest of the game. These come in AR phone games and the rather amazing digital trips. And while Watch Dogs' open-ended nature and wealth of options are impressive, the game's story isn't quite as revolutionary. After hacking somewhere he shouldn't, what should have been a routine job for Aiden Pierce goes wrong and leads to an early tragedy. While starting off fairly strong, Watch Dogs' story is ultimately a pretty unremarkable revenge thriller. That isn't to say the story is awful, it's more that it hints at potential that it never quite realises. Some of the cutscenes are brimming with tension, and the team have been ever so brave to touch on surprisingly dark subject matter. Sadly though, some brilliant moments are often over too quickly, and while the narrative seems to set itself up for some great moments, it often squanders what could have been and winds up in a predictable game of cat and mouse, paling in comparison to recent writing masterclasses. Watch Dogs also suffers from a few questionable design choices. While in-game currency is plentiful, the ability to pick up your enemy's weapons renders it largely useless. Another more useful way to spend your cash is on cars, which in theory can be delivered to you, but this service rarely seems to work, and instead you're left with the more enjoyable and cheaper option of stealing cars. Speaking of cars, Watch Dogs has one frankly bizarre mission, the ability to shoot and drive. And for a game filled with car-based missions, it baffles the mind that such an obvious mechanic was not included. There are pretty high expectations from Watch Dogs in the graphics department, and visually it's highly detailed and a joy to look at on the PlayStation 4, but those expecting it to mirror the initial E3 footage will be sorely disappointed. While cities and water effects impress, out in the grassy sections, the low-res greenery leaves something to be desired. Yet this is a minor gripe in an otherwise beautiful game. The action runs smoothly throughout, and thankfully loading screens are saved only for certain story missions, which is a trade-off that makes the slight visual downgrade very much worth it. After a generation that brought us 7 years of countless linear and identikit shooters, Watch Dogs is the open-world adrenaline shot that fatigued gamers needed. While the story could have been better and Ubisoft have made a few questionable design choices, it's rare to see a big-budget game that offers players freedom in almost every aspect of its design, and more importantly, one that is this much fun while doing so.